Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. And I gotta say, I mean, there was a time a while ago where we would use the term Wednesday Night Wars. And it's been a while, I feel like, since I've used that term. But, I mean, it really had that feel tonight. I feel like NXT stepped up in a major way. The continuation of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, the semifinal matches, both of which I thought were exceptional, especially Sanity's matchup with TM61, which we'll get into a bit later. So great tournament matches tonight. Great main event segment to promote Joe Nakamura with the contract signing. I thought Joe was in his full heel swagger, and it was amazing to behold. So, yeah, I feel like NXT, they checked off all the boxes, but not in a, point A, point B, then point C kind of way. But, I mean, you could really feel the energy and the enthusiasm. Plus, on a subjective note, we got Ember Moon back on this show after being MIA for freaking weeks. And that was great. So, yeah, for me, I can't complain about this episode of NXT. They gave me everything I wanted and then some. So, partner, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, man, this is a really freaking solid episode of NXT. I agree with everything you said. I feel like it's been way too long since we've seen Ember Moon. Like, she just disappeared off TV. I guess they're kind of pulling with her what the main roster did with Sasha over the summer, where they're kind of withholding her to make people want to see her more and kind of make it a bigger deal when she does show up, so that when she finally kind of gets her push to the main event scene to challenge Asuka, it's more of a big deal. But I don't know. I feel like we've seen more of Billie Kay and Peyton Royce and not as much of Ember Moon, and I want all three of them to be on my TV at least like twice a month.
I mean, sooner or later, if they haven't already, because, I mean, you could make the case in a way, I guess, that they've inherited the division, but I just want those three women to be the centerpieces, the ones that are really holding up the weight, if you will, and being the standard bearers until the next generation. So it was certainly great seeing Ember Moon. Any other preliminary remarks you want to make about NXT before we get into the formal TWitWoW here with our segments?
I think that both of the monster teams that we had going into the semifinals tonight had the best matches of their respective careers.
Yes, dude. Yes. Again, especially Sanity. I really enjoyed that match, but we'll get more into the specifics of that when we get to it. So with that,
I do feel like the reason Sanity's match was so good wasn't quite as much because of Sanity, so much as it was just they happened to be in the match.
Right. And I can understand
their match was great, but it was more because TM61 is just that damn good.
Right. And yeah, that's certainly.
Whereas the Office of Pain, I feel, contributed to their match being good just as much as Ciampa and Gargano did. So I feel like I want to give them more credit.
Right. And see, I'm the opposite view. I really, don't get me wrong, AOP and DIY, three-letter tag teams for the win. They killed it. They killed it. It was a great match. I just, at the end of the day, I definitely preferred Sanity's match. But I'm glad that you and I were so invested in these tag team matches, because that should be the point of the freaking tournament.
Oh, well, I think you might have misunderstood what I said. I'm not saying that the AOP DIY match was better, but I'm saying that I think AOP contributed more to their good match than Sanity contributed to their good match.
Right. Okay.
If we were to designate who was responsible for the match being good, I feel like DIY AOP was like 45-55, whereas TM61 Sanity was like 30-70.
All right.
I think TM61 really carried their match with Sanity, whereas the AOP DIY match was more like both teams were just in the frickin' zone.
Right. Cool, man. But with that said, let us get right into the first segment. Heat of the night. No heats of the night. No nitpicks.
Absolutely not. Yeah, this was really good. This was a great episode of NXT.
All right, then let us get right into our NXT review. And, really, we just get some preliminary segments like commentary introducing us. Then they field it over to Charly Caruso to talk about the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. But then we get into the AOP versus DIY. And, Ashton, what did you think of this match?
I thought this was a really solid match. I think that Ciampa and Gargano are great. Those guys are freaking awesome. But I'm starting to notice a little bit of a trend where every match that AOP has seems to be their best match ever. They are just consistently putting on great match after great match after great match. And I mean, you can talk about their match with the, we already talked about the fact that they put on a great match with SANi tonight. Well, let's not forget AOP versus TM61 was AOP's first best match ever. And then we had AOP versus Swan and Jose, and that was kind of the new AOP best match ever. And now I would say this is the new AOP best match ever. They just keep topping themselves with each consecutive team that they face.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? I got to say, that's such a relief because when they first appeared, I feel like they were kind of a question mark. Like, I was kind of scared. Are these guys that because they have presence, and I did give them presence immediately, were they just going to come in, do their, like 5 moves or whatever, but just look intimidating? And I'm glad to see that there is more depth and dimension to them than that. And they've really been showing it in these Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic tournament matches. And the match they had with DIY, one, it does not hurt that DIY is an amazing babyface team that the crowd likes. There's legitimate chemistry there. There's legitimate fire there.
And that's actually another thing I wanted to say was I feel like sort of a big element that goes into how good a monster, whether it's a tag team or a singles wrestler, how good their match is how much they can get you invested in their opponent being able to beat them. And I was on the edge of my seat during this match thinking, oh my God, are DIY actually going to hand AOP their first loss? And it didn't end up happening in the end, but I think that the finish kind of made the match overall feel worse than it actually was, because during the match I was fully invested and then the finish was kind of screwy.
The finish was kind of screwy, but you know what though? I do like it because I think it tied together all the threads. The most obvious one, of course, being the Revival and DIY, because they do get involved, and Scott Dawson just DDTs, I believe it was, Ciampa. And Paul Ellering getting involved. Here's the thing that I liked about that. At least they established it one match prior with No Way Jose and Swan, because he got involved in that match too. So you knew it was becoming a trend. Like, if he had done that for the first time, I'm like, man, that's so weak. Like, they were monsters.
We're kind of getting a sense of desperation out of Ellering.
Definitely. Well, I mean, he's invested so much in this team. Like, even in the promos, like, he talks about, how the plan is complete and the book has been, written, because, I mean, the double team finisher is called The Last Chapter. So Ellering has built these guys up, and I actually like it that he does get involved because it shows real human motivation. Well, it's my face on the product. I've been saying these guys are going to run roughshod, and if they get beat by these guys, that's egg on my face, and I'm not having it. So in that sense, I can appreciate it. And AOP beating DIY that way, with the screwy finish, one just makes AOP like, you guys are beatable, and it's frustrating because this should have been your night to lose and you had help and all that stuff. Makes the Revival, even though I'll never hate them, kayfabe wise, it does put that heat on them because you screwed these guys over, and it just makes DIY all the more sympathetic because all they wanted to do was win this tournament and then the tag team titles, and they still haven't done either. They can't win the tournament now, they're out, but they do have a chance at their other goal, which we'll get into a bit later. So yeah, really fun match.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And you made a great point that the Revival robbed DIY of one of their two big goals, because like you said, they said in an interview, whether it was last week or the week before, that their sights are set on winning the Dusty Classic and then winning the tag titles. And that was their two big things. And now the Revival removed the possibility of one of those things happening. So to me, the number one rule of baby faces is that they have to fail. They have to be able and allowed to fail.
Yes.
And the fact that DIY was allowed to fail at their mission of winning the Dusty Classic is going to make it mean all that much more when they succeed at winning the tag titles from the Revival.
Brother, I could not have articulated it better, so I think I'm not even going to say anything else. Unless you have anything else you'd like to say, we can move on.
The one thing I did want to say was that it was actually Gargano that got DDT'd on the outside, because I remember specifically thinking, oh wow, they're gonna have Ciampa eat the pin in this.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering how Gargano got neutralized. I thought they did Champ and then they rolled him back in the ring. But you're right. You're right. They did take out Gargano.
Oh, and that was another thing, dude. I gonna be such a big freaking star. Like
Yes.
between him and Rich Swann, the WWE has two potential guys that could legitimately be that next Daniel Bryan organically over as a mother effer character on their hands.
Dude, Johnny Gargano, and I'm glad you brought him up. Like his ability to sell. There was one point where he was like slumped in the corner, like on Ellering's side, and he just looks to the camera, and I just caught that look real quick. And he had such a faraway look in his eyes, like he had gotten the worst beating of his life.
Dude, nobody plays pathetic better than Gargano.
And that's going to take him so far in this business.
It really is. It really, really is. I'm telling you, man. Like I said, if it's not him, it'll be Swann. But one of those two guys is going to be that next Daniel Bryan figure where the WWE doesn't necessarily push them in a way that should get them over, but they're going to get really freaking over. And WWE is going to get their hand forced, and they're going to just have to do something about it. Even if it's like, oh, we won't give you, our favorite top title, but we'll placate the fans and give you the secondary title, even if it is supposed to be a world title.
Yeah, I mean, dude, to me, Gargano, and I want to focus on, like, I love Swann to death, but here's the thing, like, I don't know how far he's going to go, but Johnny Gargano, to me, has an amazing look. He's got that kind of magnetism about him with the people. He's going to be a dominant mid-card champion. And I do think he will win a secondary title one of these days, and he will run with that shit. You're looking at a real, and I know, like, I'm preaching to the choir because you're the one that's been saying it all this time, but I mean, you really are looking at a dynamo of a fucking babyface. Like, it's going to blow up. And really, I still say the same about Ciampa, only as a heel. I still think Ciampa could be an incredible heel if we really just see what he could do on NXT.
Ciampa might just be the new Randy Orton. Like everything that you've seen Randy Orton do over the last 5 years, we might see Ciampa do over the next 5 years.
Right. Yeah, it's not a bad, person to kind of emulate. I'm just really still invested in DIY, and I'm really looking forward to what they're doing at Toronto, but we'll get to that when the appropriate segment arises. Great tag team match.
Absolutely. All right, now let's keep moving on. Up next, we had a vignette that was simply the return. It didn't actually specify who, but I'm guessing it's Elias Samson.
I'm going to sign on to that because it was very, not generic, but didn't give away anything at all, and it just kind of screams heel to me. This also aired last week. This kind of had the same vibe as the Ember Moon vignettes, where we didn't catch it the one week, and we just thought it was something random. But last week, no, they let you know. Next week, stuff's happening. So, and that's another thing, too. I mean, next week, before TakeOver Toronto, they're getting this shit out. So, yeah, I agree with you, Elias Samson, and we'll see what he does.
That was another thing I wanted to bring up. I felt like this week could have been the go-home show if they wanted it to be.
Yeah, dude, it definitely had that tone and that energy to it to me. Like, yeah, this really could have been the go-home show, and I would have believed it.
I think next week we're just going to have kind of like a calm before the storm, like, here's some stuff that could have happened at Toronto but won't kind of day. Like, we're going to get the return of Samson, Almas versus Alexander, that kind of stuff is going to be going down next week. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. But up next, we had a Tye Dillinger sit-down interview. Talks about how Bobby Roode has made a career out of stabbing people in the back and, taking back promises that he's made and that kind of stuff. And at TakeOver, he's going to take a city that's known as the birthplace of Bobby Roode and turn it into the Perfect 10 city.
I've been loving the fire from Dillinger in this program. See, the problem I have with this program is Tye, to everybody's expectations, has been so great in it that it's going to be all the more heartbreaking if he loses. I'm not making the declarative statement that he will lose. You're going to get all my insight on that when we do TakeOver Toronto preview and predictions. But if he does lose, it's going to be heartbreaking because he has just been doing great work carrying this, and the babyface fire has been on point. Like, I'm a Bobby Roode fan, and you know that, but I really don't feel like he's been doing all that well. Like, I feel like Dillinger's been carrying this shit, and that's just my honest opinion. And him carrying it, if they allow that weight to have, like, if they allow his knees to buckle underneath that weight and not give him shit for it for carrying this, I'm going to be miffed because you're much like Gargano. you're looking at a star here. And I really like them to take advantage of it, but that remains to be seen. But great promo from Dillinger here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like, do you think Bobby Roode's going to be in the NXT World Title picture if Joe doesn't win it from Knock?
I do. If I'm being honest with you, bro, I do. Yeah. And that, yeah, fuck.
I don't know. I do kind of get the vibe though, because if you think about it, I mean, Toronto is next Saturday, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes left of NXT this year before they go into recap mode.
Right.
And then isn't Hideo supposed to be back by January?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so maybe, I mean, if they do, oh man, that would suck though, to have Roode go over Dillinger just for a quick like TV program with Nakamura that ends in like January or February. That would suck.
And dude, I'm telling you, man, if you're gonna do a TV program to wait for Hideo, I still want Joe Dillinger. I don't care that it looks like Dillinger would get slaughtered. The promos he's been doing with Roode.
No, that's perfect because it looks like Dillinger would get slaughtered, which means that he can do like a Mark Andrews, what Mark Andrews did to Chris Hero at Bolo, where he like pulls off this shocking upset win and it just sets Joe off.
Yeah, dude. If they play their cards right, you're talking about a potential NXT championship match between Joe and Dillinger that would have that fucking crowd salivating. They would set a record in terms of decibels and like volume for their reaction, because the pop Dillinger would get for even near falls would be fucking insane. I'm really hoping they don't blow this, dude, because I'm Joe Dillinger, and I say this with 100% straight face, is a fucking money feud. Play your cards right. Seriously.
And especially too, if well, I don't know. How would they play that though? Because like obviously you want some kind of finish where, you know, you achieve something by the end of that feud. What would be the goal of that feud? Like maybe just, I guess it would almost have to be, because this is where I hesitate to sign on to wanting to see the feud, because if you look at it from NXT's perspective, wouldn't the goal to Joe Dillinger be to reestablish Joe as a threat?
I can see where you're coming from, right?
About it, like if Dillinger gets that quick upset win over Joe, it's not necessarily like, oh, this is a Dillinger push now, so much as it's like Dillinger's moving up in the card to who he jobs to now, because he's going to end up losing to Joe in the long run. Joe's going to get that win back, and it's going to be in dominant fashion. So then where's Dillinger go from there?
See, and that's why, me personally, dude, and this is just my opinion, and, you know, I know we got a few people spectating, they can give their thoughts. I wouldn't even go that route. Like, I'm thinking, right, this is my mindset. Dillinger wins Toronto. It's huge. Everybody's like, this is the match for Dillinger. He won it. The future's like this open horizon. Maybe you give it 2 weeks. Me personally, I would want to get on this shit, and this has come from the guy that likes the slow burn, as we often talk about here. Dillinger would go in Regal's office. He'd say, Mr. Regal, I beat Bobby Roode at TakeOver Toronto. I'm ready to take that next step. The crowd was electric. It's Tye Dillinger's time. Maybe Regal has a #1 contenders match or a battle royal or something. Dillinger wins it, and while I would have Joe ultimately retain the title, I would book it as the type of match where, consider like James Ellsworth versus AJ Styles, but Tye Dillinger's far more competent.
Joe win the title from Nakamura at Toronto?
Yeah, in my fantasy program, yeah. I don't know if that's a formal prediction I'm locking in, but yeah, I'd have Joe win the title back.
Oh, okay. See, you hadn't established that before, so you saying Joe successfully defends the title, you kind of threw me off.
Okay. Now I see where you were operating under with the whole like Dillinger beating him, because I'm like, oh no, like I wouldn't even have that if Joe was NXT champion. I would just have Dillinger.
No, I'm operating under the assumption that Nakamura beats Joe at TakeOver. You do Nakamura Roode for the next couple months for the NXT title. Obviously, Nakamura retains because Hideo is the next champion, and then you can do Joe Dillinger to kind of reestablish Joe's dominance after taking 2 straight losses to Nakamura?
I think either path could work. My thing is, though, and one thing that I'm insistent on is I would want it booked in a way, again, as I was saying, think like James Ellsworth versus AJ Styles, but of course Tye Dillinger has a lot more fire. He's a lot more competent. It's not a guy beating him down. It's just he really holds his own, and he gets that one big hope spot that everybody just jizzes themselves over, but Joe ultimately still wins. And I would even have Joe win in the sense where he does a muscle buster, but because he's not convinced, like he puts on the coquina clutch, and that's how he ends it. I think.
So would you kind of book the first big match that they would have the way that the main roster did Daniel Bryan versus Batista in Bryan's first match on the main roster?
Yeah, I think that's a good parallel for sure.
Yeah.
I just think you got to show that Dillinger not necessarily is better than Joe, but that he can hang with Joe. And, you know, like, I think it's time that we started showing that Tye Dillinger because, like you said, the babyface's goal was to fail. I'm not going to have Dillinger succeed right off of beating Bobby Roode because then he would start looking untouchable. He would really start looking like a perfect 10, which would be a more heelish thing. You know, I would have him lose, but I would have even commentary put him over like, man, I did not expect that fight from Dillinger against Samoa Joe. Maybe even Samoa Joe, disgusted, would look back at Dillinger like, I can't believe I had to expend that much energy to beat him. And then Dillinger just kind of picks himself up maybe, or even like just gets laid out, however you want to play it. But they're just like, man, what a match for Tye Dillinger. And it would have to start at Toronto, though, and that's where I'm unsure because I've just spent all this time laying a table out, and I can just picture NXT going, nah, and then moving on to the next thing, and I'm like, fuck you. But yeah, Dillinger's so good, man. If they shaft him on this, I'm gonna be frustrated. And again, I'm the Bobby Roode fan here, but it's just not right, and that's all there is to it. So
see, I think you're kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed because I'm the Dillinger fan, and I'm expecting him to lose to Bobby Roode.
Right. Yeah, we'll wait and see, man, because I'm not committed to counting Dillinger out yet. It really is kind of up in the air for me right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he lost. Like, I am not disillusioned where I feel like Bobby Roode beating Tye Dillinger is an impossibility. It is very likely, and that is what's so disappointing, but should be a good match, and I feel like Dillinger's done great work carrying the feud to bring it full circle, because that promo tonight was fire, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that being said, then up next we can talk about second match of the night: TM61 versus SANi. Really, this was kind of a one-note match. SANi attacked early and really just demolished Nick Miller. So pretty much the entire match was Shane Thorne just being an amazing babyface, selling his ass off, looking sympathetic, and eventually. After SANi kind of fails to beat down Nick Miller when he gets back up on the apron one time, Miller gets the tag, the hot tag, and ends up picking up the win, pinning Alexander Wolf.
Yeah, with a jackknife cover, just, you know, popping that off. And yeah, just the reasons you said, I was sucked into this match because, one, I loved how aggressive SANi was, and they really played their role perfectly. I felt like this is Alexander Wolf and Sawyer Fulton's best outing. Love the chemistry between them, the double teams, the animated expressions and everything. Like, they were fully in character, but I never felt like they became caricatures, which is, you know, something that we kind of lamented Nikki Cross for in her one-on-one match.
She needs to learn from the boys.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, again, not to give TM61 the shaft at all, Shane Thorne was freaking brilliant. I mean, he did the ragdoll roll perfectly. And yeah, TM61, let me just say this too. It's about damn time that TM61 is getting this kind of shine, because it's funny when they had their first matchup against Tino Sabatelli and Riddick Moss. I even complained like, oh, these guys are so much better than this. It shouldn't take them this long to beat these guys. But you know what? Now I can kind of forgive it and regard it as a moot point, because you are looking now at the other half of the finals of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Do I want them to win it? No, I'd still think it would be cool for a heel team to win it.
I don't know, dude. I think this really is the perfect combination for the finals that it's really 50-50 because like TM61 before the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, TM61 was the only team that had ever given AOP a real run for their money. And now, I mean, yeah, now we've seen Swan and Jose and DIY both give these guys a run for their money, but TM61 has already been there, done that, and now they're getting another match against them. It's going to be their third match, I believe. Maybe the third time's the charm.
Maybe, and that's an excellent point, Ashton, and I think it tells a great story. Plus,
and they're getting progressively closer to winning each time because the first time these guys faced AOP, it wasn't even close. It was a slaughter. They got dominated. And then the second time was at Brooklyn 2, and they got really close. And now, I don't know. I think we might and that's another thing that kind of adds to my sort of skepticism regarding the AOP dominating through to the top. I think that they want a babyface to win the classic because then you get like the big celebration ceremony. But at the same time, if the AOP win, then you get the Paul Ellering promo at the end explaining the whole plan, and that could be interesting too. So, like I said, I think that they got the perfect combination of teams that it's 50-50 for who's going to win, and it's really kind of just whatever you decide to interpret and pick for yourself because there's no like obvious choice to me.
I mean, I'm just ecstatic about this final because they're two legitimate teams. So whether you go with the babyface team or you go with the heel team, at least a legitimate tag team is winning this classic. So even if a babyface team wins, because the babyface team won the inaugural one, which made all the sense in the world, and plus you look at the quality, Joe and Finn, if they wanted to be like a babyface team thing because you want the feel-good ceremony of commemorating Dusty Rhodes, I'm just glad they're doing it with a team that is actually a fucking team. Not to mention in the future, because we don't know what's going to happen with the NXT tag title situation, which we'll get to in just a second.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
But, that could be TM61. Like in the aftermath of that, they could say, hey, we won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, but we want to trade in this trophy for those titles. And,
that's not where I thought you were going. That's not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to say like, Gargano and Ciampa are probably winning the titles at Toronto, and therefore it would make more sense for the heel team to win because then they could immediately turn around and challenge for the titles.
I mean, I do think you hit on an important point, regardless of what you match up side by side, like who are the champions and who are the tournament winners, you would want a heel face dynamic because to me it's only logical that they would meet up down the road. If you win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, that shows that you were the best team in a very big tournament. So why not go for the tag team titles? So if AOP wins, and really it's going to be interesting to see which match happens first on the Toronto card, because whoever wins what match, that could be kind of a predictor for who's going to win the other match. So if AOP were to win the tournament, for example, I would pretty much call it a safe bet that DIY is winning the tag titles. If TM61 would win the tournament, though, I would say that the Revival will win the tag titles unless you would want one of the teams, and I would presume it would be TM61 if DIY won the tag titles to go heel. But I don't know how that would work. I'm not familiar with the Mighty Don't Kneel. I don't know if they've ever been heel and like if that would all work out.
I mean, they're here's the thing, they're pros. Like I'm sure they could make heel work. I'm sure they'd be fine at it, but I think that they're just kind of now starting to hit a little bit of a crescendo as far as how over they are. So I don't think you would want to take that away this quickly.
I agree with you. I think people are really starting to get behind them, which is no shock because now I feel like they're doing shit. They're in the mix.
The music, when their music hit tonight for the match, the crowd exploded. Like I think that they might have even gotten more of a positive reaction than DIY, which kind of blew my mind.
Which I'm so happy about, because at first, I'll be honest, when TM61 first came in, because, again, I'm not too familiar with the Mighty Don't Kneel, so I was kind of like really new to all of it. I said, you know what, they're all right. It's whatever. But now that they've really been given a platform to sink their teeth into with this Tag Team Classic, I see how brilliant this team is and how great they are at playing the babyface role. So I am ecstatic for them that they've gotten this far. And if they win, I won't lament it. Everybody has their preferences, right? And it's not me being anti-TM61. I just think it would be so cool if a team is dominant and as well booked as AOP won this tournament. But I just feel so good being this invested in the Classic when I really think my only investment last year was in American Alpha being in it. But now I'm just invested in the tournament as a whole. And that just says to me, mission accomplished. So
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah, man. I agree. I actually really prefer this year's tournament to last year's tournament.
Oh, yeah, dude. Not even close. 100% agree with you.
All right. So, and I think a big reason behind that is a lot to do with the fact that we do have all these actual real tag teams, and it's not just throwing together teams like last year. Because last year, the finals were Joe and Finn versus Rhino and Corbin. Like, that was the finals. Those were, like, I just wasn't a big fan of that. But, yeah. So, and I think I remember we were even, like, trying to pick, and I forget who Joe and Finn faced in their semifinal match, but I know that American Alpha lost to Corbin and Rhino in their semifinal match, and we both thought that was really stupid.
Joe and Balor beat the Revival in their semifinal match.
See, you could have had Revival Alpha like 6 months ahead of when you started doing it. And see, that's what I'm saying, man. That's what we've been saying for a while now, that NXT is kind of going like, partial ROH. It's lagging behind. Like, they don't see things ahead of time. They see it like when it already happened. They'll see that it happened, but they never see it with foresight.
Yeah, that would have been a great catalyst for the feud too. Like, you have American Alpha win the trophy, but then the Revival win the tag titles, which is what American Alpha really wants. And yeah, I mean, still a great fucking series. But yeah, just so glad in the current Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic that we've got another series, which again, I'm so glad.
I think the problem was that last year, if I remember correctly, Alpha, I think they were still technically supposed to be heel during the tournament. I think they didn't really full-blown turn face until afterwards.
Right, because they put on such a performance, the crowd wanted them to win.
Baffling to me, but yeah. All right, so up next, we had a big announcement from William Regal. He announces that because the Revival screwed DIY out of their match with the Authors of Pain earlier in the night, he was going to give DIY the other thing that they've been wanting, and that is a tag title shot in Toronto against the Revival 2 out of 3 falls.
And you have your match of the night to me. Because
arguably even match of the year.
Yeah, because let me tell you something, guys, and I've been meaning to say this for a while. You guys know, and I said this last week, I think, on NXT TWitWoW, I love American Alpha. Need to go back and watch some of their stuff because I've only watched the YouTube clips. But I'm glad to see they're doing well. They are going to Survivor Series. All great. But the Revival, man, are fucking brilliant. And what I've noticed is that their matches on TakeOver, more often than not for me, are the match of the night. And now you put them in there with DIY 2 out of 3 falls, it's done. Like, I love Joe and Nakamura, but I'm sorry, guys. You're just going to have to accept the silver medal that night because I can't see how DIY and the Revival aren't going to take match of the night from everything else. Like, they are going to kill it. They are absolutely going to kill it. I fucking love the Revival to death, and I'm so glad I'm as into DIY as I am because, I mean, their chemistry and their fire as baby faces, the crowd adores them. You've got the perfect elements, a perfect storm for another amazing chapter in the history of the NXT Tag Team titles. That's the match easily that I'm most looking forward to in Toronto. It's not even close. And while we're talking about tag team points, one more thing I wanted to mention, because I wanted to mention in the preceding segment, and I apologize, but we did find out for the tournament finals, TM61 versus AOP, Paul Ellering will be suspended in a cage, so he's not going to be able to interfere. So not only has his
When did we find that out? When did that get announced?
I think that was like a WWE.com exclusive clip that you see on the YouTube page, and I guess people watched it before we did. But yeah, that That's happening, which I think, again, great tie-in with the story because Paul Ellering only recently started to get involved. Regal took note, and now he's isolating it because of how important the finals are. So if TM61 were going to win, this would be the circumstance. Absolutely. Yeah. So, but yeah, 2 out of 3 falls, that is going to fucking own. I can't wait.
Yeah. Okay, so up next, we had a second sit-down interview for the night. This one was Bobby Roode, and just because I know you're such a big fan of douchey heels, John, I'll let you take this.
Well, I mean, Bobby Roode was speaking a lot of truth. You know, he said, I didn't disgrace Dusty Rhodes. Tye Dillinger disgraced Dusty Rhodes. You know, he goes around here calling himself a perfect 10, but Bobby Roode more or less says, like, you know, he's a joke. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to make NXT TakeOver Toronto absolutely glorious. And yeah, I mean, I fucking love douchebags. And Tye Dillinger, I mean, I'm pulling for you, but at the same time, I mean, I can't not drink your tears. So I guess I personally don't lose in this situation. Suck less, do better. And yeah, there you go.
I love that that's your go-to. You know what? Here's some advice. Suck less.
Exactly. God, kicking people while they're down. And speaking of kicking people while they're down, I can't wait for us to get to our main event segment, but I know we're still a little ways away from that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, up next was our main event of the evening, believe it or not. Rachael Evers versus Ember Moon. Rachael Evers, FKA Rachael Ellering.
Yes.
Daughter. So Ember Moon, just dominant. She killed it in this match. I really like her and Asuka, man. They are gonna tear the freaking house down when they get a takeover match, and it is gonna be 10 times more glorious than anything Bobby Roode has ever hoped to do.
You are so right. And 2 things that I want to say here, and I want to keep it brief because I do want to get to the main event.
Dude, before you say that, can I just ask, did you see the WWE NXT Mannequin Challenge video?
No.
Oh, you're missing out, man. We're going to watch that as soon as we're done with this review, but it is amazing.
Fine by me. 2 points I wanted to make here. 1, this match to me was pretty much NXT kind of winking to the NXT audience like, yeah, she can stand up to Asuka because she did have a very strike-based offense. Yep. She was very aggressive, almost a mirror of Asuka. And I think
Dude,
like, yeah.
Speaking of strikes, I'm so sorry I'm bringing this up during the women's match, but Ciampa's strikes on the AOP tonight were incredible.
Oh yeah, that was fucking awesome, dude. That was fucking
just
great.
The open hand strikes at like the neck area, like it seemed like he was wearing him down by just hitting them. But yeah, back to the match that we're actually talking about, the match at hand. Yeah, Ember Moon strikes on point. I love the handspring forearm, and of course the finish. What's the name of her finisher now?
I guess Total Eclipse. It's always something Eclipse, and I always forget it, and it's bad that I forget. But
is it Total Eclipse of the Heart, John? Is that what it is?
Maybe. I know she's eclipsed my heart with her wonder, but
adorable.
God, I love her. But yeah, on a more serious note, because this isn't John Touchy-Feely time, that's time for me in my diary. I am really excited for when Ember Moon and Asuka lock up, because I'm going to be forthcoming with everybody, and it's nothing against Asuka, but I've been kind of meh about the NXT Women's Championship scene for the last little bit.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, they got raided. Like, they lost everyone. Like, okay, if you think about it, last year, let's not even go back that far. Last June, this was literally 17 months ago. It's not that long ago. They had, I think, like 7 more women than they do now. They had Sasha, Bayley, Charlotte, Becky, Alexa, Carmella. I don't think Nia had debuted yet at that point. Eva was still kind of in the background. But yeah, like Dana was, I think, a thing at that point already. So like that's 9 women. Even if only 6 of them were actually relevant in doing things, they have just been completely gutted in the NXT Women's Division. And just think, we were trying to get them to bring up Billie Kay and Peyton Royce from NXT to the main roster. That would have completely killed any momentum they had. There would have literally only been Asuka and Ember Moon, and then they would have been bringing in women like Gianna Daddio again to work, or that's her name, right? Gianna Daddio? Yeah, but like, yeah. So I agree with you completely. And I was even just sitting here thinking, when you were talking about like, oh, match of the night, because I was thinking like, oh, well, the women usually put on like a match of the night kind of match at the takeover specials, but I don't think that's going to happen this time around because it's Mickie James. And then I was thinking like, oh, why'd they have to bring back Mickie James? And it was like, you know what? If you were going to bring back a legend type of star for any match on this card, the one that needed it most was the women's match, because Asuka has nobody. Ember Moon is legitimately the most credible babyface female on the NXT roster. And let's be fair, Asuka is acting kind of heelish lately.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they want to pull that trigger yet, and I don't blame them, because it would make the most sense for, if Asuka is going to lose her title to Ember Moon in their first match together, it makes sense to hold off on that match and have it WrestleMania weekend.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, dude, I'm glad that we're back on track with the buildup of Ember Moon, and because she strikes me as somebody that's going to be more succinct on the mic, all I'm looking for is the promo where Asuka says, you know, because she's been saying like nobody is ready for Asuka, and Ember Moon just gets up right in her face, and all she says is, "I am ready for Asuka." Drops the mic, stares her down, stares at that championship.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
She needs to get up in her face and say nobody is ready for Ember Moon.
Either one works for me. Just, I want her to lay that gauntlet fucking down. I can't wait for it. This was an ass whooping. I enjoyed it. No, Corey, you're not a terrible person. That distinction clearly belongs to me, because I absolutely loved it. Which, by the way, quick shout out, since you mentioned Ciampa's strikes in this match, I would also like to mention I enjoyed commentary night, and congratulations to Tom Phillips, who I heard got bumped up to the SmackDown announce team. He's going to be a great addition there. Very happy for him.
I mean, it's probably going to be nice to have Tom around, but it's a 4-man booth now. It's a little crowded.
I thought they were going to kick Otunga off to make room for Tom. I didn't think they were going to be
crazy. If they do, they haven't yet, because it was a 4-man booth this week.
Oh boy, that's concerning. Yeah, 4 is ridiculous. How did 4 even contribute? That's another story for another time.
Well, I think that it's one of those things where maybe they realize that like SmackDown has more dead air than Raw, because like Morrow only calls action when he feels like it's necessary, and then like JBL only talks when he can talk up a heel, and Otunga doesn't talk very often at all unless he's like making amazing chin puns about James Ellsworth. So maybe they just wanted to add somebody to fill in the gaps.
Right.
Because Tom barely said anything on SmackDown. Like, I know he was there and I know he had a mic, but he might have had like half a dozen lines all night.
Right. Well, it's still concerning to me that it's going to be a 4-man booth, but regardless.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that like this Tuesday, it wasn't intolerable.
Right. But hey, Ember Moon does get the win, bringing it back. Corey Graves loved it. Tom Phillips loved it. I loved it. Everybody loved it. And Mickie James can have her little, moment at Toronto, but we'll get back on track after the fact, because that NXT Women's Championship is coming home to Ember Moon eventually, and I'm going to have a Mark Al ready for her. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Dude, here's the crazy thing. I really wasn't that excited for Ember Moon. Like, I knew you were super excited, so I kind of played that up, but I was like, yeah, I'm sure she'll be fine. I wasn't like overly like ecstatic about it though, because I felt like she was kind of like a Petey Williams type, where like people only loved her because of her finisher.
Right.
But then, like, her first match with Billie Kay, it was like, oh my God, this woman is amazing. And every time I've seen her since then, it's like, oh my God, she's better than I even thought she was.
Yeah, dude, I gotta tell you, I was so proud that in this one instance, I actually did the legwork and got acclimated to her before her debut. Because, like, just seeing those spots, I'm like, okay, here comes the handspring forearm, and then there it is. And just, yeah, just getting to see her do that in NXT is so freaking cool. And yeah, dude, and that's the thing too. They've been doing test runs of like Asuka, Ember Moon at like live events and like house shows, and I know one they got a standing ovation. If they could recreate that magic in a takeover, I think that crowd will be salivating. Cannot fucking wait.
Yeah. Okay, so then we found out that next week we'll be getting Cedric Alexander versus Cien Almas. So that ought to be a very interesting match, considering these guys were on a team at one point. Then we got our main event segment of the evening, which was Samoa Joe versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Well, not versus, but Joe and Nakamura contract signing segment. And this was great. This was freaking awesome from both parties.
Bro, I have got to tell you, first of all, you're right. I don't want to shortchange anybody. You are absolutely 200% right. Both parties brought it tonight. But again, I wouldn't be me if I did not say I fucking love Samoa Joe. Just when I think he can't do any more. And I've got to give a shout out here to somebody who tweeted me before we even watched NXT. Alex Calderon, who said Samoa Joe, he said, I think you're going to like Samoa Joe on tonight's NXT. Just a feeling. And brother, you had a feeling, and you weren't even wrong. Because Joe...
feeling. And he was right.
Damn right he was. That was some good shit. Joe bringing out his own table, his own chair, sits there like a fucking king, and tells Regal, you know, I know your security can protect Nakamura, but I don't think you're as concerned with my safety, so I'm going to be right here. And there's a reason why I didn't really dig my heels too much in Tye Dillinger tonight, because there is somebody else whose humiliation I reveled in that much more, and it was William Regal. It was so refreshing to see that little bitch finally do as he was told. Because Joe got on that microphone and he said, Regal?
I felt like Joe was like holding Regal hostage tonight. Like I was waiting for him to be like, turn on the water.
Yeah, I was waiting for Joe to get up and slap Regal in the face as he would have deserved, then walk over and slap Regal's mother in the face while Regal watched and did shit because he realizes that he's old, washed up, and in the way. But tonight, at least he got to serve a purpose.
Regal in the face and he's just like, what are you going to do? I'm going to bring you a contract, sir. What are you going to do? I'm going to bring you a contract. That's right. Who are you? I'm your bitch, sir. I'm your bitch.
And Joe, I mean, there's salt meat wound, but Joe got all up in that shit. Like, he emptied the entire container and he rubbed it in thoroughly. Because Regal...
Even right down to like, oh, I'm done signing it now. I'm going to hand it to you, but oops, I dropped it.
Dude, I loved it. I mean... There have been douchebags that I have aspired towards because I said one day I'm going to be a magnificent piece of shit. Tonight, I had to retire that dream because Samoa Joe has it on lockdown. I mean, even with him being like, oh, Mr. Regal, hurry up.
Hurry up.
I was like, yes, Regal, know your fucking place. I was so sick of it. Oh, well, we'll have to confer with Asuka first. Did you ever ask Joe if he liked his opponent? No. So you know something? Now you're going to know what it feels like to be a bootlicker, you piece of shit. He got exactly what he deserved tonight. I am 150% Team Joe. Fuck William Regal.
Can I just ask, does bootlicker have any deeper meaning, or you just literally just mean one who licks boots?
No, I mean somebody that's like a sycophant to authority, like, oh, you know, he's just so subservient and this and that. Regal expects everybody, you know, to lick his boots. Well, now guess what? Joe's in charge now. Get used to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, just amazing seeing Regal finally, after such a storied career, know his place. Because I feel like he lost his humility that he gained kissing Vince McMahon's ass. And it was nice to see Joe give him a reminder. So great stuff from Joe.
That's
And
right. I think, is Regal the only willing participant in the Kiss My Ass Club?
yes, he is. Oh man, I'll tell you what though, that kiss he gave to Vince's ass was nothing compared to how he kissed Joe's ass tonight. Pick up
And
that
I love
contract.
too, like, let me just say this, and you can straighten me out if I'm misunderstanding. Is it just me, or was Joe kind of all over the place tonight in a way that was like hypocritical in a heelish way? Like, it's hypocritical in a way that makes you hate him. So it's just, because at first he said, Regal, you've got all that security down there to protect Nakamura, but I don't think you've got my best interest at heart. He said that, right?
Right.
And then he went on to say, you don't want me coming down there because I will put you in a stretcher, Nakamura. So he's basically saying that the security is there to protect Nakamura and not Joe. But at the same time, the second reason he's not coming down there is because he doesn't want to hurt Nakamura. Like, completely contradictory statements, but it makes it work even more because he's such a hypocrite and he's a heel, and it makes you hate him even more.
Absolutely. And that's why I've been loving his mic work, because he can deliver such contradictory statements, completely straight-faced, labor under these delusions of, oh, I should have been handed a title shot on day one. I mean, hell, if Joe had it his way, we probably would have bypassed the word shot and he would have just been given the championship. And I just think it works so perfectly with the Joe character. And just seeing Regal grimace and visibly wince with every step, oh my God, it was.
And you know what, though? I love, too, that even though Joe totally made Regal his bitch tonight, I love that Regal had that last little sense of, like, kind of rebelling against Joe, because when Joe said, hurry up, it almost seemed like Regal started walking slower.
Right.
You know what? I might do what he says, but I'm not going faster, damn it.
Exactly. I'm doing what you tell me on a protest.
Like, no, I'm an old man. I've got a bad hip. I will walk at my own damn pace.
I can't wait for Samoa Joe to be the reason that William Regal actually gives in to the fact that he's old and orders a life alert. That is going to be the biggest victory of just any scumbag's life. It's going to be amazing. But
so scumbag ultimate victory is victim gets life alert.
Well, yeah, victim concedes to the sands of time and realizes that they're just not good enough. And while they're just taking up space needlessly, you might as well just get that life alert.
What if your victim isn't old, though?
Well, then we make them old by shattering every bone in their body and really severely diminishing their quality of life, as Joe probably will do to Nakamura at Toronto. So
I was going to say, what if we're talking about, like, Mojo Rawley?
Well, nobody cares about Mojo Rawley, so we could push him in front of a truck, and then we don't have to worry about old or young because he's dead. So it's a moot point.
You know what? I like your style.
Yeah! But and to get on a more serious note, because I want to talk about the other side of the coin, I've enjoyed what this feud has kind of brought out of Nakamura as well. And I'll give NXT credit for this. They really illustrated that Nakamura wants to get his hands on Joe without them actually physically interacting. And I do like that. Like, having security serve as like that fodder for Nakamura's rage until he could get the real thing, Samoa Joe at Toronto, that builds the tension. Because with the aggression that Nakamura is showing, and security didn't even do anything. They didn't even really try and forcibly restrain him. They were just like, okay, he signed the contract, let's go. And then he just out of nowhere elbows a guy, back elbows him. I like that. I feel like it's
honestly, I thought he was doing that so that they wouldn't try to stop him from getting to Joe.
Right.
I didn't realize that he was just randomly raging out and destroying people to kind of almost as a release, as therapeutic release,
Right. And we know now, with Nakamura doing stuff like that, he probably views getting his hands on Samoa Joe as an act of pure catharsis. I'm going to be able to let it all out. And Regal, here's the funny thing, because you were talking about Regal, and I liked some of the points you made about him. he wasn't even, I think he's so over Joe's bullshit. He didn't even try and step in and admonish Shinsuke. He didn't even seem to like visibly register. This guy just laid his hands on NXT personnel. Yeah. I think there was a part of Regal that enjoyed it because just like Nakamura, he's imagining that as Samoa Joe. And he's saying, I'm going to let this go because I want Joe to see what he's in for. And like, I never thought there would be an angle where even the tension could be like emanating from the GM. Now, I don't think Regal's going to factor it anyway in the main event. I don't want to make it seem like I'm taking that position, but I just like that there are all these emotions running high right now. And yeah, the champion is just fed up and he's taking out people left and right. And the powerbomb was a nice touch too. Never broke eye contact with Joe. Just great.
And the powerbomb was delivered to the Black Otaku himself, Brennan Williams.
Ah, very cool.
Former NFL offensive lineman, 6'7".
Ah, okay. Okay.
Big SOB. He's got like red tips on his hair and he wrestles with face paint and it's badass.
That's a great factoid that you brought to the table. I had no idea, and I'm very glad we learned that. Got laid out tonight, and he's probably like freaking out. I got laid out by the NXT champion, and it's Shinsuke Nakamura. But yeah, great stuff here from these guys. I'm actually
going to say, forget NXT champion. He got laid out by Shinsuke Nakamura.
Shinsuke fucking Nakamura, people.
Exactly.
So yeah, great stuff between these two. With that said, anything else you want to say about the main event segment?
No. Let's move on.
High spots and low shots. My low shot's William Regal. You're the authority figure of an entire brand. You're the authority figure of an entire brand, and you got reduced to be somebody's contract, bitch. You know what? Choke on it. You're my low shot. How's that for power of the punch? Freaking prick. All right, who's your low shot?
Oh my god. You threw me off now. My low shot, SANi, because they already lost, and unlike DIY, they aren't getting a tag title match to make up for their loss.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent point. High spot. You know what? Because much like Lucha Underground, I'm in a good mood after all the wrestling we got tonight. I'm going to give my high spot to my girl, Ember Moon, because she's back, and she came back in a winning and dominant way that, again, in my mind, was a wink to the audience. This woman can hang with Asuka. She can take what Asuka dishes out and match it to boot. So, yeah, I'd say Ember Moon is my high spot.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess I'll just kind of stick with my theme, since my low shot was SANi. My high spot's got to be TM61 handing SANi their first loss and moving into the finals against a team they've already lost to twice. Now, I know this doesn't necessarily apply to wrestling, or it might, and I just don't know it. But in the NFL, if you lose to a team twice in the regular season and still make the playoffs and end up meeting that team in the playoffs, the odds of a team beating another team 3 times in the same NFL season are extremely slim. So I think AOP's chances of winning the Dusty Tag Classic, and especially with Ellering suspended above the ring, are really they're shrinking in on them, man. I think TM61's chances have risen significantly, and the fact that they're in the finals, it's got to be exciting.
Oh, yeah. I think you make an excellent argument there. Not much more I could add to it. With that said, do you have any concluding remarks about tonight's NXT?
I don't think so.
All right, then. Well, guys, with that said, this has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW. The best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment, subscribe, and like the video. More likes this video gets, the more likely it is to be the top search result on YouTube for NXT reviews. And when you're the best at what you do, the top is the only place you belong. So be sure to leave that like. You guys already know all the stuff to check out because of the amazing backgrounds my cohort and commentary here makes. However, there are 2 things that I want to plug. First and foremost, Q&A. We do Q&A the last Friday of every month. this month. That means it is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, the 25th. So you guys want to get questions in. It is after midnight, so it's the 10th. So you've now got 15 days still. Nice window to get your questions in. Multiple mediums to do it. Visit the TWitWoW Facebook page. Be sure to leave a like while you do visit, and you can message us there or leave a comment there. You could tweet at both of us. I've expressed that I prefer DMs because it's a better way to keep my things organized, but you can tweet us your questions. The Reddit, we have a TWitWoW subreddit. Just many mediums you can get your questions in. Everybody's permitted up to 5 questions per Q&A. You don't have to use all 5, but you do have a limit of 5. You can divvy up.
You know what, John? I'm actually going to say I think as far as Reddit goes, I would recommend if you wanted to ask a question, I wouldn't put it on Reddit because 99% of the time that I check that Reddit, it's to post new, links to videos that we've done, and I rarely go back and look for threads that are Q&A related. So as far as and if the subreddit was more active and we had more people in there, like, talking wrestling and that kind of stuff, I'd probably be more likely to catch that. But, just based on the lack of activity there, I would say if you're going to ask a Q&A question, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter are your best bets.
Okay, there you go. Just forget what I said about Reddit, guys. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, those are your best mediums for Q&A questions. As I was saying, you do have up to 5 questions. You don't have to use all 5, but 5 is your limit, and you can divvy them up however you like. That said, on to the other thing I want to plug, our Patreon. If you go on our Patreon, we are now offering new donor rewards. If you want a show, if you want us to review or live react or both to a show of your choice, go and look at the pay structure. A certain donation will get you that reward, so go and check it out. I know we're going to be doing our first one tomorrow. We've got a donor requested a show, and we're going to be doing that. Should be a lot of fun. Very much looking forward to it. So yeah, that is just a great Patreon reward that you can all take advantage of. And so, yeah, get to racking your brains and thinking, I wonder what I'd like to see him review or live react to, or both. Again, great offerings there. So be sure to check that out. And, yeah, like I said, tomorrow we're going to be seeing our Patreon donor, get rewarded there for his contribution. And should be a great time. After that, because it's not a pay-per-view weekend yet, then we will see you again for Lucha Underground live reactions, and it's Aztec Warfare 3, so it is going to be fucking amazing. Can't miss stuff. I expect a lot of shit to go down, a lot of things hanging in the air, and we'll see it all culminate. But until then, guys, tune in and peace out.